want to know.
Vorrei sapere.
I want to know.
Vorrei sapere.
Vorrei sapere.
I want to know.
Vorrei sapere.
I want to know.
Come fa la gente a concepire.
Okay, so you want to understand American politics today, you need to understand one idea. By maybe the greatest American political philosopher, a guy named Boss Tweed, who ran New York's Tammany Hall. Tweed used to say, I don't care who does the electing, as long as I do the nominating. And that dynamic explains exactly what's wrong with politics today. Because in the process of getting elected in America, you first have to be nominated. And you are nominated by the people who give money to your campaigns. But those people are not average Americans. They don't represent average America. 20 years ago, Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich shook hands and promised they'd deal with the problem of campaign finance. Those were the good old days. In those days, the problem was small. But since that time, the problem has grown enormous. And now we have an election where 400 families have given half the money that's been contributed to the super PACs and the candidates so far. That's not an American democracy. That's a banana republic democracy. So we're in the middle of the presidential primary season. But the biggest political party in America is none of the above. Most of America has turned away from politics. Most have given up on democracy. And who could really blame them? There is a strong connection between what our government does and what the economic elite want. And there's a strong connection between what our government does and what the special interest groups want. But there is no connection between what our government does and what the average voter wants. Then we have to find a way to break this corruption, to get us a democracy that's responsive to the people again. The easiest and most important thing we can do is to demand answers. You need to ask them, how are we going to get Wall Street reform when Wall Street is the biggest funder of political campaigns? How are we going to get an energy policy that can address climate change so long as coal companies and oil companies still give so much money to congressmen? How are we going to get anything that we care about before we get our democracy back? Force them to answer that question, because that's really the only question we should be asking right now.
Yale University came out with a study maybe 2-3 years ago that said that the functioning system of government that America has right now is an oligarchy, which is a government run for the rich by the rich, which jives with what he just described. The problem is that the U.S. Supreme Court decided that corporations were persons, corporate personhood, and once corporations were persons, they could spend unlimited amounts as people, as individuals, on behalf of candidates, which means corporations can group up with other corporations as a group of people, as a group of friends, pool all their money and fund
One
a campaign.
A campaign, yeah.
Right. So Hillary Clinton, for instance, by herself could only raise $2,700 per person that donates. That's max, right? That's a federal requirement donated directly to her. But she can coordinate with a super PAC, which is a corporate-funded person raising money by themselves to fund a campaign. It's complete lunacy, and it basically means that whoever has the most money, which means the most corporate donors willing to donate to you, wins. Which is why since New Deal Democrats came out in the 1990s with Bill Clinton, Newt Gingrich, Hillary Clinton, all we've seen is the rise of corporate-funded politicians. And I mean, we have a chance now to fix that with Bernie Sanders, who wants to overturn disastrous laws like Citizens United, wants to fix the banking regulation laws that were gutted by Bill Clinton, things like Glass-Steagall and the Frank Dodd Act. All that stuff has to be done in order for us to get back to a democracy that is actually run for the people and by the people, because right now it's not. Right now it's an oligarchy.
Are you saying that the tip of the matter is it's just capitalism? So basically it's always been this way in terms of the change, like you said, changing those rules, but the fact of the matter is capitalism is stealing from this democracy. And now if they say they're going to put somebody out there who speaks to talk and we listen to them, but the matter is he's a capitalist. He's coming from being a capitalist and he's going to make money, but he's going to be upfront about it. He's not going to hide behind anything else. He says, I'm spending my own money for this. I have enough money to spend on myself. He's not spending it out of his pocket. He's getting it back because he's loaning that money to himself. So after the campaign, he gets all that money back. So he says, okay, but this is the other game you play. If you invest in politics and this thing, you get a tax deduction. So this is the game that he's playing around with, and this is the game of America in that trip, and that is the game of the entitled. They are entitled to
And
this.
a lot of people start to get fed up with this and losing faith in democracy, and that's what's happening now.
It's not getting rid of democracy. Democracy, for what it stands for, is a good thing. Anything could be good if it's done correctly. Communism could be great if it's done correctly. So democracy can be done if it's done fairly without having that element of having the capitalists who are making all the money controlling who votes and how vote. That is it. Wall Street was one of the biggest stealers of all time. He was a biggest stealer in New York. It was the Wall Street. There was a whole segment in American history where government, big business got a hold of government and was controlling government. It was called Wall Street. I think he went to jail for that.
Eventually.
Yeah.
The problem is maybe the big amount of people who are abused by this capitalism and who are poor and who have no good welfare, and there is no real America anymore, like having chances, you know, like before you could grow up from nothing to a rich guy. Well, all these possibilities are a little bit gone. Well, I don't know, there's no question in it here. Where's the question? Looking for a question.
Well, what I'm asking myself is also, yeah, the American dream. Everybody says the American dream is dead by now. I'm not sure if it's 100% true.
Well, is it?
One
It's a
thing-
nice question.
It
Could
is
we
a
ask
good
this?
question.
Is by this we can say the American dream is like finished now?
Right now it's dead.
Yeah, it's dead.
Legitimately, the definition of the American dream, according to a recent statement by Bernie Sanders, is the dream that you can live your life, achieve, and know that your kids will be better off than you.
Yeah,
They go
yeah.
further.
Right.
They go further, right? We want better for our children, for our progeny, right? The future. And this is the first generation right now that will not do better than their parents, will not make more money, will not own houses sooner.
Well, about the American dream, a crucial point I found, and I heard Bernie Sanders say that as well, like, it used to be, at least the ideal used to be, you work hard and you get something. And it's more and more normalized that you have a couple of jobs. It's the same a little bit in Holland, but not as extreme, because you don't have the same minimum wage as here. But people work hard, they have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, and they don't get anywhere with it.
Yeah.